Hey guys, this week's episode is so much fun. We have our first couple on the podcast. So this week we have Doug and Jamie Hehner. They were on the very first season of Married at First Sight. If you've ever watched or followed that show, I had not. I went back and watched their season. It is incredibly entertaining. It's a very cool concept. We talk about it at the beginning. But more than just their experience on the show, we get some really interesting insights and conversations about the weight of attraction in relationships, in marriages. What is sort of the difference between attraction and chemistry, and how attraction changes shape and form in marriages and in lifelong relationships. It's really fascinating. They have some really cool insights on that because of their experience. And then we talk a lot about Jamie's journey through postpartum depression and anxiety, what that looked like for her after their second child, and what that looked like for Doug, his role. I think that's something that isn't spoken about a lot, is like, what does this mean for the partner, for the husband to support, and then how they worked through that, the ways that she started to regain her energy, regain her faith, and some tools she used to come out of that after many years of suffering, and just regain their marriage, and to regain what they call hot marriage, cool parents is the name of their podcast, which is so awesome. They're just really genuine people. They're extremely open about what they've gone through, where they've struggled, how they have fought to come back to a now decades-long marriage that started getting married at first sight. So this was such a joy. They're fun. They're empathetic. They really, you can tell their hearts for everything they do and share is for the people who follow them, who need to feel less alone and who need to feel hope. So I hope y'all enjoy meeting my new friends, Doug and Jamie Hehner. All right, Doug and Jamie, I'm so glad to be talking with y'all again. I got to be on your show a few weeks back, and we had such a great time. So I'm glad for all my Enjoy Life people to meet you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're pumped to be here.
So we connected through Family Made Media. So I'm so glad to have y'all on the show and introduce you to the Enjoy Life listeners. How we love to kick it off, because I am from Music City, is if y'all had a walkout song for your life, like a song playing behind you right now as you go into the end of this year, like what would that song be? Just off the cuff.
I have one immediately in my mind, but
Excellent.
You got, I'm curious who, like, if
Gnarls Barkley, I'm Going Crazy.
Okay. Love the honesty there.
So reduced that.
So I recently started running again. I used to run a lot, and I feel like it's so good to just clear your mind and meditate and like just, I don't know, focus on some, then something other than like taking care of kids. And there's a song, like the playlist I listen to, it's like Pandora, really. And so whatever comes up. And Maren Morris's Bones. Have you ever heard this song?
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good, and I feel like it's like our song.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
Paul really know the song. He's like, what?
Trust your judgment.
But it's like it's just a song about, in my opinion, like a couple that literally like everything has been thrown at them, and they took a hard left turn, and it gives me goosebumps to think about it, because I feel like I just feel so connected to that song with our relationship. Like we recently took a hard left turn, but we're still here, and our foundation was strong, even though we were married to strangers. So that sounds odd, but yeah. So that's the song.
I love that. I wouldn't think of that as like a running pump up song, but absolutely on par for like that part of a relationship.
Yeah, honestly, when I run, I mean, I do like a run pump up song, but I like to get deep and like meditate and like and positive things, and I don't know. Yeah. So I hear you're saying, but I love that song.
Yeah, I love that. Running in your feels. That's a great one. Well, you mentioned Married at First Sight. So that's where, if a lot of people know you already, they either follow you on social media, y'all share so much about your lives and your family and encourage other people, kind of walking in those seasons. But it kind of started with Married at First Sight. Y'all were on the first season. Admittedly, I had never seen the show, and I told y'all before, I watched several of the first of y'all's episodes just to like get the feel for it. And it's fun. It's fun to watch. It's a really cool concept, and y'all really were the guinea pig. So I'm kind of curious, like, why you each chose that. Like, what were your expectations going into it? We're not going to camp out here the whole time, but I am so fascinated.
Yeah, that's always the first question. So don't feel alone. Everyone's like, why?
Yeah.
Why did you complete stranger, like, tell me what happened in your life that you just blindly married someone you never met and you didn't even see.
Yeah. Well, for me, um, I had I was at a point in my life where I was ready to explore relationships. The way that it was pitched, and admittedly, I had tried out or I filled out applications for other reality shows. There was a show by The Rock Hero, Wipeout. I just wanted to do something, and I was just applying, and I think I had my name in some sort of queue or call list. And I remember getting a phone call while I was out in the field for my job that I had at the time, and it said, we're from so and so from some production company. We have a love experiment coming to the tri-state area. Would you be interested? And I was like a week or two out of seeing somebody. Not seriously, but that had just broken off. So it was like almost a perfect time for me to get that phone call to be like, yeah, I'll explore what this is. And from there, it was just interview after interview and just going along and thinking it's some sort of matchmaking game or and a love experiment. And as I got further into the casting calls, you go to this final casting call, I walk into a hotel room and it's 50 or 60 dudes in there, and then they introduce the show to you. They say there's these experts. This is a show that originated in Denmark, and these experts are going to do an in-depth background to you, the specialists in their field, psychology, sociology, sexologist, spiritual advisor. And based on your data, and one of the experts, Dr. Pepper, she was part of the algorithm for like Match.com. What would some of these like matchmaking sites? Based on that information, you'll be able to picture what your perfect spouse would look like, what you imagine your life to be, physical, what your deal breakers are, everything. And then based on that information, if they find a perfect match, the first time you see that person will be at the end of the altar at your wedding. And a lot of people got up and left right away.
Yeah.
A lot of people got up and left.
Yeah, I guess so.
So it was, for me, I think I saw it differently when I was going through, meaning that it wasn't scary to me. It was just like, okay, well, if I trust this, if I trust the experts, and they were very accredited and respected individuals, it seemed. If I'm truthful in myself, if I really paint a picture of what I would want my wife to be, personality wise, if you stick to my deal breakers, physically and culturally, everything else that would be part of it. If you find a person based on that, then that would probably be a perfect person that I would normally pick. And that was my headspace going into it. I didn't have any nerves, or I wasn't scared at all. They had a really good cheese and fruit platter too. I was starving.
Was sold on the cheese platter.
But then, they introduced the experts, and you got a chance to speak to them and got to agree to move on from there. And then that's when the assessments and everything started.
Are you innately a pretty logical guy?
Yes, I'm also a dreamer, though. Yeah, so.
That seemed like a very logical analysis. Like, the facts should make it work.
Yeah, I also am blindly optimistic.
Ditto. Yeah, I gotcha. What about you, Jamie?
And I think I'm kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful, because he brings that. I want to be blindly positive, but I'm like, that's not the real world. Like, the real world, you got to be careful. We can just like go out, wear your rose-colored glasses, and you're going to be a smash, So for me, same story, it was just a love experiment. It wasn't you were marrying a stranger. And they essentially said, are you having trouble finding someone? And I was like, yeah. And I had actually been on The Bachelor previously, so that's probably how they got my information. And because they were cold calling, really. Like they were not, it wasn't like there was a sign up like, if you want to be married at first sight. Yeah. So they said, oh, are you having struggles? And do you think that you would benefit from having help from these experts? They really want to their approach to me was that they wanted to change the statistics in America. It's 50-50, 50% stay married, 50% can divorce. That's pretty much still the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's been hovering there for a long time. And they said, what if we, put science into this? And, matchmaking and arrangements have been happening for more than choosing your partner, longer than, choosing your partner. And I have a science background. I'm a labor delivery nurse. And so I was like, obviously I believe in science. I'm like, scientifically, it makes sense. And I am having trouble. And if you're telling me that I have to pay for all these fancy experts to find me my quote unquote perfect partner, okay, I'll give this a shot. It wasn't that easy immediately. Like at first I was like, I don't know, should I do it? I don't know. This is something else. And also I really value marriage and the sanctity of marriage. And I didn't want it to be like, not to like bash on The Bachelor, and I'm not at all. It's a great show. There have been many great relationships that have happened from there. But my experience on there was that it was very produced and I didn't feel like I could be authentic. And this is just my own experience. And so that's not for everybody. But for me, I felt like they really wanted the love story and they really pushed for something. And I was like, I'm not doing that again. Because first of all, I'm fool myself. Second of all, I just don't, I don't like really do well in that situation. And so anyways,
you're pretty awkward.
Yeah, I'm very awkward. I'm incredibly awkward. And like, I just don't want to embarrass myself anymore. And so, so long story short, I saw the Danish version so it had been done once before. It was in Denmark and it was nothing like The Bachelor. It was honestly nothing like Married at First Sight either. But they were it wasn't like, oh, we're in love on our first date and I might marry. And now I'm just smitten. It was like, okay, this is kind of awkward. It's kind of weird, but maybe it's something. And I was like, okay, that's real. And how they got me is they said that one of those couples were still married and they were looking for, they were trying to have a baby. And I was like, if I could be there, and because they had been married for a year, I was like, if that could be me. And so I am a dreamer also. And I was envisioning okay, you're going to help me find this guy. We're going to be in love and get, so, and then our wedding day happened and you saw that.
Yeah.
So
wasn't quite the scene from The Bachelor. Exactly.
Right.
But obviously you guys have been together now for over 10 years, was when that happened. So something about the experiment worked.
Yeah. And for us, it was being season 1, not even the production company knew what would be popular, what the show should go.
It really was like a docu-series.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily an outline to follow. And I think Jamie and I, when we first met each other, we just said, let's try to be the same people on and off camera.
Literally our wedding night, on our wedding, the honeymoon then, I guess. And I'm thinking to myself, I hope he doesn't think that this is going to be there's no consummating this marriage tonight, because
I wouldn't have let you in my pants. I'm sure.
It was Doug fighting Jamie off, let's be real, once the cameras went away. But I mean, truly, you've just met this person. It's so crazy. So I'm curious, first of all, congratulations. That seems like a big feat. It's such a unique story and you guys just lean into it, I think, so well, how honest, you are, but also how hard you fought for it. Like you said, you believe in the sanctity of marriage, and it was clear that long-term partnership was what y'all went there for, and it certainly was a bit of an uphill battle the way you started. And I'm just curious, where you are now and everything you went through, did that change your understanding or sort of perspective of the role of attraction, or maybe the weight of attraction in a relationship?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, so for any of your listeners who don't know, so when I was obviously full, head on it, full in, and so was Douglas. We were both very much head in, but we had never seen each other. We didn't know what it was mean. We knew nothing about each other. So we're at, our wedding day and the doors open. Actually, we have to open our doors. I have to walk down the aisle and, I see my husband, Doug, for the first time. And I was like, I just envisioned from that Danish version. I thought they had immediate butterflies and attraction. And I was like, I have that. This is not what I thought it was going to be. I thought this is going to be love. And I don't know. I was very, very juvenile. I feel that's kind of juvenile thinking and kind of shallow and wishful. It is.
But natural. Yeah. Wishful.
Yeah. And so needless to say, the attraction just wasn't there. The man hadn't even spoken, but I was like, I think I was just honestly terrified of marrying a stranger. It was a legally binding marriage.
Yeah.
It wasn't like,
Yeah.
you know, this was real. This was very real for me. I mean, my niece and my nieces were my flower girl. My nephew would have been the ring bearer if like I was really in rings. And my sisters were my bridesmaids. And it was a very real wedding for me. This wasn't for TV. This was very, very real for me. And I thought I would have butterflies on my wedding day, and there just were none. So I was like, this was the biggest mistake in my life. I can't believe I just did this. I really do value marriage. And now I thought this was different than like, I do think it was, I thought that maybe they were like setting me up. I'm like, really? I like trusted these experts but that's where to get back to your question, where I was 27, so I wasn't that young, but I have learned since then that like, man, I judged a book by its cover all the time, clearly. And he hadn't had a chance to even say a word and I was out. Like, that's ridiculous. And also, not for nothing, but if I would have just went with that, if I would have just been like, nope, not attracted, I'm out. First of all, the attraction would have never grown. Second of all, we wouldn't have this amazing, beautiful family that we have right now. I probably would be divorced because, to be very honest, attraction fades anyways. And so if you're going to hold on to this attraction, that's probably why it's 50-50 in America, because the attraction absolutely fades. You get older, wrinkles, gray hair.
I think attraction changes shape.
I think that's a really great one.
Yeah, what does that mean?
There's an initial attraction. There's, I don't want to say it sounds like
actually a really
animalistic where, there's like a scent.
But it is.
But I believe there's aura, where, two people click and connect. As you grow, there's going to be certain parts that you're going to feel comfortable with. And, like someone that's absolutely beautiful, there's going to be other ways that you're going to start to be attracted. I think for any couple, as you progress, it's finding new ways to stay attracted to each other.
I think that you hit money on the head. So I shouldn't say attraction fades because, but that is true. It does fade, of course, but it can also grow. And so if you don't ever want to, at least I've learned from my own experience with, my marriage and this relationship, is that if someone is great for you on paper, and a lot of people, a lot of my followers are like, oh, you really find a great person. And I'm like, and they'll say they have like a great friend that's just not there. And I'm like, if everything is great on paper, then you're never going to have one person in life that's just everything, checks all the boxes. None of us are perfect. I mean, we just aren't. And also, don't we think those expectations are a bit too high? Because unless you yourself are perfect, which I guess some people might think that they are, but like none of us are perfect. And so you have to give grace to, this person. So like, if he makes you laugh, if you can have a good time with him or her, if you trust them, if they're good to you. I grew up where, unfortunately my mom was in relationships and my stepdad was in the jail for, abusing her. I mean, just like really terribly abusing her, like to the point of nearly death multiple times. And so I kind of had low standards. I was like, listen, if he doesn't abuse me, then I should be real happy. But the truth of the matter is like, that is something that we should be really thankful for. I mean, there are people out there who are struggling with these types of issues, whether it's physical abuse, mental, emotional abuse. And so there are other things to be focused on other than just attraction. And I think that we as a society, especially in America, that is like our number one thing. And it's like, wait a minute, attraction can grow. Like when I see my husband first of all, when I know that I can tell him anything, we could be like really hot and heavy. And I could be like, nope, I don't feel like it anymore. And he's not mean to me. I mean, I don't know if I've ever dated someone, but like men could be really, really mean. And women probably too. I mean, so
blue balls never kill you.
Like, enough turns me on more than like a buff body or I don't know, like Brad Pitt's face, which I think is quite handsome. Yeah.
Well, I love that. And I think I agree with you completely. And I think people are quick to dismiss people who they have very similar foundations with and goals, for life that align because, there isn't the attraction. And I think past a certain point, right, there needs to be that desire. And if that doesn't surface after a certain point, that's a whole nother conversation. But I feel like kind of what I hear from y'all, and I feel like I've experienced this in my life in certain scenarios, maybe what you look for first is almost more like chemistry than attraction. Because if that chemistry is there, like you said, if you feel comfortable and safe and trustworthy and silly and laughter, like that will grow into sexual attraction most times.
Thing is that it doesn't if you have a closed mind. And so now when I've watched Married at First Sight season after season after season, and I can see why some of these couples are paired, but the one person is just so closed-minded and easily offended. So it's two categories in this. Like if you're easily offended that, you weren't like, for example, if Doug was easily offended and he could have been, and kind of like rightfully so. I mean, I had a freaking panic attack on our wedding day. He could have been like, peace out, girl. But she had no idea. Worked out well for me. But there's two things. You got to have confidence in yourself and you have to have an open mind because you're going to just say, oh yeah, attraction can grow. But if you're not actually going to allow it to grow, and it sounds easy, and it's obviously not, it's not. And so I just have had so many conversations with so many women primarily who are like, oh, he's such a great guy. And I know that like everyone tells me I should go for him, but I just don't feel it. And I'm like, are you allowing yourself to? Like, and it's okay to not, but then maybe don't be sad when you're single because you're not allowing yourself to let that love grow for whatever reason. And that's kind of more of a personal thing. That's kind of more on you than on the person, because it could be with many different men, or I've been talking to women primarily, but
yeah, that's so true. You do have to have an open mind and heart for that to happen. And I think y'all modeled that so well, obviously, in your years and times following the show and your early years of your marriage. And I feel like you do a really good job of that now. From what I see, I mean, your podcast, which, is the #1 rated podcast y'all have done for a long time, is called Hot Marriage, Cool Parents, which I think is the coolest name. I think you're changing it, but I do think it's really cool.
Thank you.
Where did that come from? And why did y'all start that? Why was that your focus?
It's really kind of a joke, of course. Like, we're just trying our best to have a hot marriage, and we're trying our best to be cool parents. And,
but like, isn't everybody?
Yeah. And I just thought it was clever. I like the idea of hot and cool. And I love mockery of it because, we're really just like a crapshoot. Here. But yeah, I feel like that is genuine, like who we are. We are, just trying to live our life. And that's really what our podcast is all about. I mean, it's like, I'm just
trying to make it through.
And then also trying to encourage others to help them realize they're not alone either. I mean, we're all going through the same things at the same times, no matter where we're at.
Yeah, y'all do a good job of that. It's really fun, really authentic on every side of it. Like hilarious, authentic, really deep and personal, authentic. So I appreciate what y'all do. And anybody who doesn't follow, is it still Hot Marriage, Cool Parents?
It is. We were going to change it because our YouTube page is Hanging with the Hehners, and I just feel like it's probably best to have our names the same. Like, but I should give it
it's
up.
So
Hot
good.
Marriage, Cool Parents. Such
Either way, y'all go follow Hot Marriage, Cool Parents and Hanging with the Hehners. But I guess I will ask you, just sort of piggyback off of like the initial attraction, and chemistry conversation. Speak to people, like me who just got married, or people in that like 4 or 5 year point in their marriage. Like, what are some recurring obstacles or some recurring sort of, I don't know, strategies that y'all have found to maintain that connection and fun and chemistry and intimacy?
Okay. Like, I can probably sum this up with one word, and that's therapy. I really believe in therapy. And the reason is that
it's been a blessing.
It has been such a blessing. First of all, we got married with essentially therapists. So I guess that's
true.
I never mean to like lean in on that as much as I had no idea how beneficial it is to have someone completely outside the box to chat with about your problems. So it's, of course, easy for some people if they have a great relationship with their best friend or their mom or their aunt or their grandma and to talk to. And we tend to just go there. But the issue with that, and of course there isn't an issue, you certainly should, but there is this one problem that they are always inevitably going to be biased towards you. even when you say that they're not, they are, because that's their family. Like, they love you. You work for it first and foremost. And the issue with that is that they also, when you're like all mad that your husband, left the toilet seat up and threw his clothes all over and he's done this 5 days in a row, and you're like, what a lazy slob. And you tell your whole family. Yeah. And then like a week later, your husband's doing great. And they're like, oh, and he like just has like one little accident of like, who knows what, like, and they're like, oh, he's such a lazy slob. Like, they don't see the progression. They just remember you complaining, because we tend to complain more than we praise. Right. And so it's a tricky situation if you're going to go to your family or your best friends or whatever and complain about your partner, because, well, if you do that, that's okay. But then make sure that you follow up and say, hey, this has gotten better. Also. Right. And the thing about that is we forget to do that. But a therapist, if you have a great therapist, you can talk about 5 days my husband peed all over the freaking sea. He let things close.
Doing all these things.
Well, I'm just saying, like, actually, my husband does do that, and I'm really thankful. But I'll tell you, have been in therapy for a long time. Over there. But the therapist, if you have a good one,
I have great aim with my feet.
We have a great therapist, and if she's listening, she'll kind of follow through, and she'll also be like, well, Jamie, okay, I hear you that your husband does all these things, but how about you? What are you doing? Why does your husband feel like he's so rushed that he has to pee real fast and like take his clothes off? Oh, is he the one taking the kids to school every morning? Like, maybe that's, and so then you're like, wait a minute. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, what about, what am I doing to contribute to this? And so, I would say, oh my gosh, even if you're in a good spot in your marriage, having an ongoing therapist is literally, I just couldn't say enough about that. I really couldn't, because, and it's like, couples, not just one or the other. Because it's just, they help you hold you accountable. And then when small things come up, you can talk to this therapist who also isn't biased, like, they're really, that's not their job. And they're also confident. I mean, they keep it private. So many reasons why it's so good. The one small thing that is so unfortunate is that it is expensive, and not everybody has a therapist or has time for a therapist. But.
Yeah, and I think it helps. It helps. It helps. There's a lot less blow-ups. Like, there's a lot less like fire burning up into that overflow sort of state. And for me, I was never a good communicator. I still struggled with communication and feelings and exactly what I want to say, saying or speaking up when things bother me. Like, that just wasn't ever me. And you start to realize that when you keep things in, it's almost like you create just a unspoken sort of expectation type thing. And if no one knows that something's bothering you, how can they change it? And it's really helped us, and especially me with communication, but also not getting to the boiling point, or not letting it get there, being able to have an adult conversation and sort of nip it in the bud as soon as things start to happen.
Yeah, y'all are very open about, since we're on the topic of therapy, getting to a what I would call a breaking point at some point in your marriage about 7 years in, and just throwing around even the idea of divorce. Do you mind talking through a little bit of what brought you there? How, I assume that's one of the moments that really drove y'all to therapy. Maybe you were there before, and just kind of speak to people who might be in that much of a strain in a marriage right now, and just kind of give them encouragement through what y'all overcame.
Yeah. So first things first is, I think us women tend to think that they're told we can do it all. That's like, hey, we're strong, we can do it all. Like, looking at babies and be a working mom, that was like, and that is something that we're proud of, because we do it all. Yeah. However, we shouldn't have to, and there's a reason why that saying, it takes a village, is like, has been around for ages, and it really does take a village to take care of your children. So what happened, I think, looking back now that we're just getting out of that point. I mean, and so thank you, Jesus, seriously. But anyways, I would say that for us, I first of all, I had both my babies on camera. So I really enjoy working. I really enjoy connecting. I mean, I have such an amazing community of, I call them my girlfriends, and they're just so loyal and loving and raw and real. And I enjoy connecting with them. I enjoy sharing experiences. I enjoy the fact that they will share their experiences with me to make me feel less alone. Yeah. And so, I really never ever had a maturity break. I never ever, I mean, I literally was filming while I was working, while I was pushing my baby out of me. And so both of them. And I would take my baby to LA to shoot. I hosted this after show for Married at First Sight for many seasons. And I would take, my daughter with me. I was nursing, and of course, Doug can't, and it's hard to pump and get all that milk. And so I was just working and working and working. And I just never said no to an opportunity. And I really felt blessed. I mean, I also felt like, wow, God has given me all these opportunities. I'm going to be faithful, and I'm going to do it. But I didn't realize that, first of all, I'd never really put self-care at the top of my list. I didn't really think that was as important as working. I always felt like I have to work. I grew up very poor, and we would have sometimes no food, no electricity, no heat, and you're from upstate New York, so it's freaking freezing, and there's like no heat. So for me, it's in my head, like, if you can work, you better work, because you just almost like you never know when that can happen again. And so I'm like trying to get on that. That's a little bit of a story. So needless to say, I worked a ton. And after our second son, our second baby, I definitely had postpartum depression. I knew it in myself, because like I said, I'm a labor delivery nurse. I know how to screen for it. I could tell, but I was also kind of like, it's a weird thing when you have like postpartum depression and anxiety, because you're almost like disconnected from yourself. And you can see that you have all the symptoms. You can see that you're miserable. You can feel it. And that's when the suicidal thoughts come in, because you're like, I can't explain it. And it's odd. Oh golly, I feel like I could cry, just because it's a really, really hard time. And I knew that I felt crazy. I sounded crazy. I assumed everyone around me thought I was crazy. And so I think what happened for our marriage was, I felt like he wasn't stepping up enough, but also I was incredibly depressed and anxious. So it's not like I was thinking with a clear mind, and I knew that. And so it was that. And then also I really felt like I was working all the time. And so that there was a couple things that happened that made me feel like he must be cheating on me, because we'll also be having sex and in a marriage, and I'm with my husband in particular. He enjoys having sex, and like I just wasn't feeling it. When you're freaking anxious and depressed, and you're working nonstop, and you have 2 small children, that was the last thing on my mind. But I also had guilt over that, because I was like, oh, that's how that's his love language, is physical touch. I didn't even want to be touched. Like, I was like, leave me alone. Also, simultaneously, it was just such a crapshoot, because also I wanted to have another baby, because I want to have a family, and so I was just really personally quite a mess. And I realized it, and I was kind of like begging for help and hoping someone could see me, which sounds bizarre. And I was like, I don't know how to help myself. And so our therapist was monumental. I'm so thankful that my husband wasn't like, I feel like I cry over this, because he was patient and loving, just like from day one, and like, when
I knew she was pretty from the beginning.
Yeah, and I still am. I'm just very thankful that I had someone who was willing to stick by my side through that. And so needless to say, if you're in that 7-year, for us, it really was that 7-year pitch, like it was so true for us. Like, I think that by the time you get married and then 7 years in, you add on all these responsibilities, likely children.
But also, this was also COVID too.
That too.
For us,
that's true.
What was eye-opening with our therapist was, with COVID, you're stuck almost. You're stuck inside. So for us, we were
terrified.
Yeah,
I was pregnant with my. So I tried so hard to get, and we lost 2 babies prior to him. So I'm like, I'm not losing this one. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified was terrified not only of catching COVID and having to be separated from him. I don't know if he caught it where he died, because this was in the beginning,
Yeah.
no one knew. It was 100%.
We were sanitizing bags from the grocery store.
Oh yeah, I
And
mean, weren't
leaving
we all?
it
Yeah.
for 24
Yeah.
hours before bringing them in.
I mean,
Yeah.
it
But
was
the
a time.
yeah, what I was going to say was the when you're stuck, and something the therapist, she caught on to this so fast, because we were just like, we want to branch out, we want community, we want all these things, but for us, we're working from home, we're parenting from home, our kids are toddlers and a newborn, or not even there yet. So she was just like, you guys are leaning on each other as friends, confidants,
Yeah.
business partners, lovers, like everything.
Parents, like we do. It was only just us.
No one can be everything to somebody else.
Yeah.
You would expect your partner to be every single thing that you need.
Yeah.
You need something else, and it's unfair to expect that from your partner.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the turning point for us.
Yeah, we were like, okay, like, we tried. It's hard. It's difficult, because some families, you just have this strong family unit and bonding and whatnot. And we're fortunate to have that, but I don't know, it's kind of complicated. So, I only live where I'm from because I just like the sun and like better weather and the
Yeah.
beach,
I get it.
So I'm not even close, we're not living near my family. So my mom, I love her to death, but there's just no support, unfortunately. I mean, there is, I don't mean to say there's none. She tries her best, but, and then, so we lived in New Jersey near his family for a solid 5 years. Like, I gave it an attempt, but I felt like I never developed a community there. I didn't have, when you have your people.
Yeah.
And another great thing my therapist said is that sometimes family, they are, you love them, of course, but they're not your people, and that's okay.
Oh,
And I was like,
wow.
I'd never heard that
Yeah, we
before.
never hear
And
that.
for me to be like, okay, because I was trying to force myself like a square peg into a round hole kind of thing. That, of course, we love each other. We're family, and we really love each other and enjoy each other's companies and whatnot. But like you just gravitate towards people, and I'm trying so hard to be like family, and I think that's repelling a little bit to some people as well. Like, okay, girl, like back off a little bit.
Yeah.
So this to say, 5 years in New Jersey, and I never really found my people. And sometimes your people, are not necessarily family, and that's okay. And so
And again, through COVID, it is so difficult to try to meet new
Right.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, I'm down in Florida, and we started going to church again. I'm very thankful for my assistant, because for many, many, many years, she was the kind of person, like, who just, loves Jesus and loves people, and she loved us. And and let me tell you, she worked with us during that awful depression and whatnot. So I can't imagine what I was like to work with. And she was lovely and kind, and I'll forever Diana Teagarden, you are the best, and I love you. And I don't know if you're listening, you probably aren't, but I miss some of this message to you. So she was just like, not like in the most kind, gentle, loving way, like, hey, is there a church somewhere you want? I mean, that's a great way to have a community. And so we started church, and it is a great way to have a community. And like, that's like, I found my faith again. And so if I could say like therapy, and if you're faith-based, get back into church, or at least have a friend who you can lean on in that.
It's amazing to me too, though. Like, there's certain moments where, because I'm not a very religious person. I am an ordained minister, so I could do weddings. But
So he's very religious.
yeah, but and any time where I think it's just like, we walk into church and we see people like this, like singing, and it's like, it's still uncomfortable for me to, like, I just never was that type of spiritual person. But when you think about it, any time we've gone to church, the message has always been applicable. It's always been totally relevant to what we're going through. And, to think that at that moment, we started going to a church. We met a family that's there that invited us into this neighborhood. We fell in love with the neighborhood. We fell in love with the people. And a couple years later, we live in the neighborhood and we're part of the community.
That's awesome.
And we've been happier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
That's such a
Anytime where I
gift.
think that, religion is some like voodoo, like it's like there is that path to wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It's
God is a
honestly-
God of people, right? Like he wants to bring his people together. I believe that 100%. And it's such a good reminder for people who are probably in your shoes all over the country, like whether they move to Florida or whether, it's not that type of COVID anymore, but whether they're in this season where they feel like they are trying to be each other's everything and it's just not working, that is a safe place to step out, and that, if it is a healthy, kind, loving church, that the goal is to create and facilitate community, right? Like first and foremost. So I'm so glad that y'all have found that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Pretty remarkable.
I feel like honestly, I can't thank Diana. She just had a baby, and so her baby's like a week old, so she's no longer with us. Of course, she's like with her baby, but and I really believe God placed her in our life. I mean, she has just been nothing but a friend to me. Like she was a fan. Like I'm not necessarily, she wasn't like hardcore or like that, but like she was just loving and supportive to me, and like for many, many years. And then eventually I hired her because I was like, gosh, she's just such a great person. And she never ever was that person to be like, you need Jesus and you need to go to church and what you're doing is sinful. Or, you know what I mean? Like she just loved, like, it's completely judgment free.
Yeah,
and then when I asked her, like, when I'm like, oh, I'm just like drowning in my old sorrow over here. And she's like, oh, well, maybe that's an idea. You could go to church. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a nice thought. And so then we go, and then God just does his thing. And like I cry because it's like, it's really amazing. It
really is.
Was that a crucial part of your battling and coming out of that postpartum anxiety and depression?
Paramount. I think from my point of view.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, I was on the highest dose of medication, and I had a therapist. I was running, like I was trying to get back into like this pot. I'm like, I was eating like Sakara Life, which is like this really expensive crunchy granola, no pesticides. Because I'm like, I'm trying everything to be free. I'm trying.
It's eating carnivore.
It's actually delicious. So, but very expensive. But I was just trying everything I could because I wanted to be a better wife, a better mom. I was just miserable and like, and I didn't realize that the one thing I was missing was like, like I had no one other than Doug to go to, and Diana. Thank you, Diana. But I didn't, when I was a kid, I would go to church, and I like grew up, I said, with domestic violence and just poverty, and the only like safe place for me that I felt like for a long time, my only like out was to just pray to God, and I never knew my father, so I would literally pray to him like truly like a earthly, like I would talk to an earthly father because I didn't have
so good.
And then I, life happens, and I don't even know, like I just like some things happen, I moved, all things, and then Diana, it was just, I mean, I really feel like it's a, if you ever wonder if God loves like one person and possibly be you, and then if you just look back at your life and think about how he's incorporated someone who loves him into, I mean, Diana, it's just bizarre. I mean, it's a long story, but I, without a doubt, I know that she literally just worked with me so that to guide me back to like Jesus. So I don't even know if she really truly knows that, but I think she does.
I bet she does.
Yeah.
That's so good. Well, I know that is probably such an encouragement and a light that people, women especially, who are in that season right now, postpartum is so common, and it just, I feel like I can feel people being relieved by hearing you say, like, I really was doing everything and I just felt like helpless and at rock bottom, and that there are people that, will come into your life to help you get to church or get to therapy or find medication, whatever you need. Like, if you really can be prayerful for those people to come into your life, that like you're evidence that that happens and that you can get out of it and thrive and get back into the marriage and the type of relationship that you had before. And I'm just thankful that you're so honest about that season of your life.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I would say if there's another woman
Postpartum can happen a year after having a baby.
Yeah, it can happen, and it kind of takes you by. So I was not expecting that. I mean, I already had a baby, and I had blues, of course, and I thought that was, I had no idea what real, like I had no idea how bad it could really be. So, man, if there's another person out there, another woman experiencing that, I would just say, I would also say, first of all, I would say therapy is so incredibly helpful, and all the things like move your body, try to eat healthier. It's so hard when you're in that cycle, but of course, take medication if your doctor recommends that. But also, and whether you're, believe in Jesus or not, just go to church because it's such a good message. And and people who love Jesus love people. And so
for sure. That's right.
To love you,
and find the church that fits you.
For sure.
Yeah. Thing too is there are a ton, and none of them, just like another human being, none of them are going to perfectly align with all your, whatever your requirements are. But like, try to have an open mind and just go anyways. And
I also want to say though too, I don't want this to come off like Jamie had postpartum depression. I was totally innocent on all of this. I mean, there was a ton of stuff. Being lazy, not being forthcoming, being depressed myself. Like there was a lot of challenges that I was working through also. And thankfully for our kids, it was almost like a perfect distraction while their parents figured their shit out.
Yeah.
But I think, with each bump, you get stronger and you realize that even 9 years in, we're still building our foundation.
Yeah, that's a good reminder.
Yeah. Based on that Maren Morris song.
Yeah, the bones. Man, the bones are good.
I think our bones are good, Tom.
Yeah. Doug, can you real quick, because I don't think this is a conversation that happens enough. For husbands, for men whose wives are really struggling with postpartum. I know you said you had your own stuff going on too. What did that look like for you? Like, how do you encourage those guys, to be there even when like Jamie has said, she knew you loved her, but she didn't feel it. Like that feels like an impossible sort of uphill battle. Like I'm doing it. You just can't feel it. That's so hard.
Wow. And, it was tough for me to watch because, you get to a point where it's just like, there's just nothing that I can do that's right. Nothing's going right. And, when you have your kids at home, I think I sort of, when Jamie was going through her thing and, I just felt like we weren't like clicking, I would sort of just be with the kids more, and just sort of take care of them. And I think what started to change was just finding out what she needed that day, that moment, and not try to guess what I should be doing, but actually, try to find some way to help, and it's, it does take a lot of patience and it's frustrating. And, when you hear your wife say how depressed she is, and you're around her every day, you can't help but think that, well, what the F?
Yeah.
And, what can possibly happen? Even if there's suicidal thoughts in there, it's just like, well, what do I even say to that? You don't want to blame yourself. You want to just sort of just be positive. And
well, that's the other thing too, that I would say for a supporting partner person is when someone else is going through that, it's so hard to remain so selfless because then, of course, you're openly living with me and I'm miserable. I can't even imagine, But instead of him being selfish and being like, girl, like you're all you're doing is thinking about yourself and all your struggles and like he would over and over again, like just hug me and not say anything. really all I needed was like a hug to know that I'm loved. Like he would remind me that my kids love me and I am important and that I need, that I'm needed here on earth. And, and I think that when you're in that type of depression, you don't actually know that. Like you really are wondering, like, is it even worth it? Like, and you can't even believe it. Like if I had never experienced that, then you can't even fathom that someone would even, you can't even, you're like, especially when people think, they see me on the outside and they think, oh, well, she's had it all. Like she's got this amazing husband that she just, married at first sight and she's got 2 beautiful children. And for me, I mean, from where I come from, my goodness, I do have it all. And so even in my own head, I'm like, I have it all. What is wrong with me? I'm like, I just don't, but I don't feel like I was worthy for it. I didn't feel like anyone even cared about me, if I was here or not. Like, and honestly, like, of course, my children, I just thank God for my children because that is obviously at the end of the day. And what's sad is that it can get so bad that you don't even have that, like that you start to think that they'd be better off without you. And that is such a scary place to be. And so I would really encourage anyone who's kind of going down that path at all of just, if you're starting to recognize those symptoms of just not having like energy, like not even caring if you're showering or brushing your teeth, kind of like, like canceling with friends, or you feel like you don't even have friends anyways, you never go out. If you're starting to notice these like very reclusive and like it's just you never have energy and you're exhausted and you're tired, but yet you slept for like 12 hours or whatever, like if you're starting to catch on to these like postpartum, or not even just postpartum, but just depression, you start to catch on to these things, truly, 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 like talk to your doctor, please, and don't be medicine. Like if your heart wasn't working, you take a pill. If your you take a pill. If your brain's not working, take the pill. Let it help you. You don't do that forever. And go to a therapist. Like I think those 2 things, because when you're so far down in that deep cycle of like depression and anxiety, it's, people say, why don't you run? Why don't you, and move? Oh, eat healthy. And you're like, I have zero energy. I'm going to go to McDonald's and grab a Big Mac meal, make it extra large, lay in my bed and like cry. Like that's all I can do all the time. And like going for a run or even a walk, like that sounded awful. But so what it takes is finding support to get you to the point where you have a little bit of energy to go for the walk. You're walking. You're like, oh, this feels good. And then you start running even 10 minutes. I mean, this was my experience anyways. So anyways, not to kind of, but like if someone listening is going through it, I would want to share that with them because I think a lot of times, medicine there's such a stigma with it still, like to say that you're on, I wouldn't even want to admit it because I was like, I don't want anyone to know because there is such a stigma with mental health still, but anyway, there should be no stigma. And I tell you, I take medication and so does Douglas. So you can take medication with us and it's okay.
No, Jamie, I thank you so much for saying all of that. I think I've had some people in my life battling depression as well. And I appreciate you saying, like, just do the things you can do to put the fuel back in your tank, to have enough to take the walk, to have enough to call the therapist, and if that is medication, if it is church, you said like reuniting with your faith again was part of what poured that energy back into you to do that. And just to eliminate all the like guilt and shame that goes along with depression. I feel like that's a thing that makes me angry when I see people that I love being depressed because they're like, I shouldn't feel this way. Everything you said, like, I should be happy for all of these things that I have. And it's like, no, let's completely scrap that. There's no room for that here. Like, just do what you can to love your soul enough to get enough energy to take the next step. And like Doug did, I admire you so much that you were like, I just tried to pick up the weight. And what you said, he would hug you more and he would tell you how important and loved you are, because I think the impulse as a loved one is often to want to fix. And like you said, Doug, there's nothing you can do to fix. Like, you can love and love and love and pick up the dead weights. And that's really kind of all you can do. And that feels helpless. But I'm glad to hear from you, Jamie, that like that really was what you needed more than him trying to like help fix it. Yeah.
I think that words of affirmation are also like so powerful, but it's kind of tricky because you don't want to say, it's a tricky thing to do. Yeah. So the best thing you really can do, the best way you can show support is, I think, just to like hug someone and to just and kind of push him away, and he would not let me, and he would just hug me, and so then I would kind of sink into it, but I think that, I mean, one other free tip that could maybe help someone is,
What do you charge for tips?
well, no, I'm saying a resource that like you don't have to pay for, because I feel like medication you have to pay for, therapy you have to pay for, go to the doctor you have to pay for. But there's this app called Insight Timer, and of course there's like the Bible app, and there's a lot of Bible apps there. You could find a good one and just let that play. But there's also I really love like meditating, and there's so much power in just hearing positive affirmations over and over and over. And I mean, I listen to this. It's called Insight Timer, and I share about it with everyone because it's like the only app that I feel like is free. And so you could either choose to pay, which now I choose to pay because it has helped me so much. But you can just listen to free. And if you're, you're new to meditating and all that jazz, it sounds like voodoo a little bit or wonky, but to just have someone talking to you about like you are strong, you are brave, you are loved, and hearing that over and over again, even if you don't believe it, like just let that just run through your head and then slowly just start trying to believe it, because you have to give a little effort. I mean, it always does come from a little bit of effort from yourself, but you don't need it. You don't need an awful lot when it comes to like, if someone's constantly telling you like you are brave, you are loved, you are needed, you are strong, eventually you're like, wait a minute, am I brave? Yeah, I am brave. I can get through this. And then all of a sudden, like now, I mean, I literally think Jesus that like some of these thoughts come to my mind.
Right.
Where, and I'm like, wow, that was a positive thought. Like that I didn't need like something first. Like, this is great. I'm doing good.
Yeah. No, I would love to get that, and we'll link it in the show notes, because it really is. There's so much power in the words you speak and the words people speak over you, and just that continued meditation on it. It really does rewire your brain. Like, we had a neuroscientist on here a couple weeks ago, and it's like when you speak those truths to yourself, they really start to change the way that your mind works. And that's a powerful, simple place to start.
Yes. And that Insight Timer is absolutely free. So
yeah, we'll definitely link it.
I think that's a good resource for people, because everything costs money, and not everybody can afford all the 10 days that, it's very expensive.
For sure.
So
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you guys so much. Everybody listening, like, if Jamie and Doug's story is your story, or anything that you've heard here has really struck your interest or feels like a safe place you need to be, like, go to their YouTube page, Hang with the Hehners, go to Hot Marriage Cool Parents. Y'all dive into a lot more of some seasons of struggle and what that looked like for y'all, and overcoming and just rebuilding from some tough places in your marriage. And it just is such an invitation for other people to do the same. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm excited to know you guys and actually meet you in person in a couple weeks here in Nashville, which is going to be awesome.
Really exciting.
Shameless plug. Family made event.
Yes, it's a family made event, which we will all be at, and we're so grateful for them, like we said at the top. But I want to ask you guys how we always end, because the show's about choosing joy and chasing joy. What's something bringing y'all joy right now?
I would say probably community, Jesus, like are like just realizing there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
There is. For me, it's been a long time where I was not sure, so it's nice to see that.
I think for me, it's been activities,
finding hobbies that
tennis, softball. Especially for me, like, you can get stuck in the house, and when you live in a different state, like, I was always just like, I have friends from my childhood, like I don't have that yearn to make new friends or anything. But then when you're in a different state, you realize that you sort of have to, build a community again. And it wasn't a priority of mine until I started to become active and eat tennis and go to softball, and instead of saying, no, I'm just going to hang out here and, find something to do around the house, going out, and I've met some really great people, and that feels good.
Yeah. Pickleball, right? Jamie, are you playing pickleball?
I love it.
Yes. I'm all about it. My husband and I play all the time. So if we have extra time in Nashville, we'll have to get a game going.
I'm not that good though, so don't judge.
Yeah, it's all for fun.
when Family Mate has some Olympics and competitions, we'll have to make pickleball one of the.
Dude,
we can make
absolutely.
compete with us though, because that will be fair. So
Yeah,
we're
I
in here.
know.
Pickleball time.
Yeah, it's always he's way more confident than I am.
Well, thank you guys so much for being with us. Y'all go follow Doug and Jamie, Instagram, YouTube, on their podcast. And I promise you will not be disappointed. Y'all are such great voices and leaders for people, you know, who are new in marriage like me. So I appreciate y'all. I respect you and can't wait to meet you.
Well, we love you. Thank you so much for having us on your podcast. We really appreciate being here. And I'm pumped to see you soon. It'll be fun.
Pretty soon. All right.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Thank you.